that missed that chance. And so this will be a cool opportunity, I think, for people to get to know him a little bit better. So I was under the impression that this link only lasts 40 minutes, which is bad news because we've been on here for quite a while. So I hope we don't get kicked off. If we do, we'll hopefully try to get back on. So Baha'i Black History Series honoring a remarkable life. Arbury Jack Guillebeaux. He was born June 10th, 1932, and he passed on August 28th, 2020 what? 2021. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So so Dad did a lot of family history, which I'm very happy about because he sent me and Audrey and Hami like a packet after he figured out the Guillebeaux, and that X is off for a reason. It's our folks from South Carolina and North Carolina spelled their last name without the X. And it's an interesting history. You know, a lot of Black people don't know their history because of slavery. And so we're lucky. And I'm going to go ahead and read this part because it's just here and easy. The family started in 1763 when Andre Guillebeaux, a French Huguenot, left his home in Bordeaux, France, to seek refuge from religious persecution. Andre left France with a group of men under the leadership of the Reverend Jean-Louis Gilbert. They traveled on an old ship called the Friendship, leaving their families behind to join them later. After 13 months, the French Huguenots arrived at Charleston, South Carolina, in the spring of 1764. Andre Guillebeaux and his wife, Mary Jane, had 2 children, and the group settled on the Little River and started building their homes and a few stores. After they finished building, they decided to call this place New Bordeaux and Mount Carmel after their home in France. Andre built his home differently from others. He used logs and wooden pegs instead of nails. And this is the reason why the Guillebeaux house still stands today in McCormick, South Carolina. It's the only Huguenot home in the country, and it belongs to the Historical Society of South Carolina. So Andre and Pierre, Andre's son Pierre and his wife Mary had 5 kids, and the youngest kid, his name was Peter, and he had relations with his father's housekeeper. And so that's where we come in. The woman was part East Indian and was known as Amelia. And so the other interesting thing is that, we're descendants from Mary Guillebeaux. So Mary Guillebeaux was Peter Guillebeau's youngest daughter, and she had 2 brothers, Neil and Alex, and they were all born into slavery. And there came a time when all 3 were scheduled to be sold. However, their father prevented this occurrence by purchasing them himself. So what's interesting about this house that you see is it's been restored, but it's the way that he did it, it was very unique. And so the white Guillebeaux, in the family decided to try and, preserve it, and they knew how unique it was. And so they got it moved, and you can see, I don't know if you can see it, but over here, they moved it after it was kind of ransacked, where it was, and they made it a historic site, and they fixed it up. So this is actually a place that you can go and it's an Airbnb. Like you can go and be in the Guillebeaux home. We were all set to do it at one point, but but we didn't go because there was a storm. Anyway, this is Mary Guillebeaux. This is the lady that I just talked about. So pretty cool. They also restored the cemetery there. How do I get this to be gone? Good question. Maybe down or down, down. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. So, my dad's early life. This is a quote from Ray Charles. What is the soul? It's like electricity. We don't really know what it is, but it's a force that can light a room. I found this. Look at that picture of Dad. He was a senior at Stevens Lee High. His quote, I know, it's the same, right? Find a way or make one. He was in the trade club, glee club, and band. There's his mom, Lois Guillebeaux, who's a huge force in his life. And there's my Uncle John over there on the right-hand side, and all of us on grandma's porch. Especially toward the end of his life, he talked a lot about grandma and how what a strong woman she was, how she kind of pulled them out of poverty, and he really loved her and learned a lot from her. There's the Tucker's Firesides. This is his early life. He became a Baha'i in 1963. A fireside is a meeting where people who are interested in the Baha'i faith come and ask a lot of questions. So Dad had been coming for a few months, and then Mom came as a student, and he thought she was pretty cute. And apparently he leaned over to a friend and said, "That's the woman I'm going to marry." And sure enough, he had to work for it, but sure enough, he did marry her. At that time in Asheville, it was illegal to marry interracially. And so on July 29th, 1965, they traveled to Chicago to the the Baha'i Center there in Chicago, and they got married there. And they came back and had their reception. And there's the Montgomery family. There's Audrey and Hami and Mom and Dad and me with that big old fro. So it's interesting, the record player in the back. My family. I mean, there's so much music in my life, and I think a lot of it has to do with Dad, and he had a very eclectic record collection, and so I feel really I don't know, enriched by those Saturday mornings and listening to all that music. So I'm just gonna, like I said, this is quick, but like if you see something that you want to talk about at the end, please, we'd love for you to fill that in. What's going on?
I see there's a countdown in the green there.
Oh.
The meeting's going to end in 10 minutes and something. I don't know if
okay.
Changes anything.
So, oh wow. Yeah, it is saying that we only have 10 minutes. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll try to re-up and do it again.
We can all log back into the same link,
and
it'll bring us right back here.
Okay, we'll do that.
Good to know.
Here's about his work and advocacy. If I really listed all the things that Dad did in terms of work, it would be, we'd spend most of the time doing that. But here's a quote from Baha'u'llah: "Dedicate the precious days of your lives to the betterment of the world," from the gleanings from the writings of Baha'u'llah. I'm just going to highlight a few things that he did. He was the executive director of the Black Appalachian Commission, the BAC, in Asheville, from 1971 to 1974. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. That's very exciting because I just found out from Jillian, who is a researcher and who researched about advocacy and Black folks and um, all that in the Appalachia. I don't know how to say that word. Anyway, uh, and so I just this week, Hami and I were on a Zoom call with her, and so I learned a lot about that time in his life. He was the deputy director for the Federation of Child Care Centers in Alabama, focal for 25 years in Montgomery, and that's really what I remember the most. It was up in a church, and Rob worked there as well.
Yep.
And Aunt Sophia's on the call, and she, I'm sure, can tell us a few stories about his time there. And he was the director of culture at Innisfree Hotels in Pensacola, Florida, for 20 years. I'm not. There's so much. He was a visions consultant. He was. He had his own business, Connectors. He was a consultant. He went to back and forth to Australia doing work, and so yeah, I mean, the man really understood that work is worship. um, so here is a picture that Jillian supplied me with. It's about the Sanctified Hill disaster in Cumberland, Kentucky in 1972, and the people who experienced this disaster. There was heavy rains, and it caused the homes to just, you see the home just kind of sliding down the mountain there, and it was awful. And the federal government didn't want to declare it a natural disaster, and so the residents, you know, went and asked the people from the BAC for help. And so Dad was um, I guess, what was he? I just said it. The executive director. It was the first time that they kind of got the money together to pay someone. So he was, the head of that, and he went to Kentucky and listened to these families and really helped empower them. And he actually wrote an article that inspired Jillian to do some of her research. And here's a quote from Dad that was in South Today in 1972. Black Appalachians who are at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder in Appalachia have limited power as long as their struggles are isolated in Asheville, North Carolina, Hazard, Kentucky, Starkville, Mississippi, and Steubenville, Ohio. But the vision that was born in 1969 has become a reality. Today, Black Appalachians are combining their resources and acting as one community to challenge their oppressors, continue the fight for justice in their villages and towns, and carry the battle to the nation's capital. So it took about 7 or 8 years, but Dad did, and the BAC did help these families get the money that they needed and the resources to replace their homes. So Dad's service to humanity. Here's a quote from Abdul Baha: "Work done in the spirit of service is the highest form of worship." So again, Dad did a lot of community service, and he did a lot of Baha'i work. It was kind of blended together. But he spent 46 years on the local spiritual assembly of Montgomery. He did the Friendly Supper Club in Montgomery, and he was part of Interfaith Montgomery. He spent 12 years as an auxiliary board member for Protection. I would often hop in the car with him and go to Atlanta with him, and we had great talks on those occasions. And I would get to see my friends from Atlanta, and those trips actually enabled me to eventually join the Atlanta Baha'i Youth Workshop. He was he was on the regional, actually the first, I think, regional Baha'i Council of the Southeastern states. So he was on that for 10 years. So, you know, lots and lots of service. And I think that the biggest legacy, one of the biggest legacies, is his marriage to my mom, Farzaneh Rabbani Guillebeaux. And the quote here, it says, "A marriage between two souls alive to the message of God in this day, dedicated to the service of his cause, working for the good of humanity, can be a potent force in the lives of others, an example and inspiration to other Baha'is as well as to non-believers." And that was Shoghi Effendi. So I think maybe, does it make sense before I get into these videos to sign off, or should we just let it kick us out?
I'm not sure. I'm not used to this.
Okay. Well, I have several videos, and I'm not going to do them all the way through, but I think we have time to do this one. And this is about their 25th wedding anniversary.
Oh.
They made the local news several times. Can y'all hear it?
Eve of real change in civil rights
Yeah.
for Southern blacks. This weekend, a couple originally from Asheville is celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary. Jack and Fafar Guillebeaux were married when interracial marriage was taboo. In fact, it was against the law in North Carolina. Jack is black, his wife Fafar is from Iran. News 13's Michael Hanna takes